This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air on our YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook channels with one Drew. And we're glad to have you back on the air.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
So we have a sponsor. It's Newsly.me, and they are an iOS Android app. And what they do is they actually take video podcasts, and translate them to audio. So you can stop scrolling and start listening. This podcast will be on Newsly within an hour. And if you use coupon code GHOST2021, that's GHOST2021, you get 1 month free premium subscription so you can stop scrolling and start listening. And we're glad to have you on the air. So, for all those who are listening, we're Family Ghost, and we have one Drew, and you are a singer, songwriter, hip hop producer, and you've been influenced by your grandfather at a young age, and you've basically grown up out of North Florida, and you had a debut album called Hollywood Dreams with a certified
Yes,
hit-making track named Robbin Hood, and you
yes, sir.
continue to be out there using like an upbeat lyrical flow for your art. And we're glad to have you on here. And you're creating waves in the hip hop scene. So this is what we're going to get into tonight.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here, man. I appreciate you having me.
So like we always ask our musical guests, like, what age did you get into music? Can you
I'm sorry.
remember?
What was that? You breaking up a little bit. What would you say?
Oh, okay. What age did you get into music?
Oh, I've always been kind of been influenced by it was probably I was around 10 years old or something. 8 years old when I was playing the harmonica with my granddad and stuff like that. And just growing up with a lot of older brothers, older cousins. I was always into the stuff they were into, and they were into hip hop, of course. So I got into that. I think it was like fourth grade or something like that when I was writing my first rhymes and like writing poetry as well. And just kind of getting involved with it that way. So yeah, around 12, I guess.
And so, why did you choose like hip hop as the type of music you wanted to get into? Were you influenced by like did you have heroes that you looked up to, or other people in the game that made you want to go into this version of hip hop? Or maybe you can talk about the type of hip hop that you do.
Yeah, I was just drawn to hip hop and rap. It's just it just sounded real good to me when I was young. So um
Hmm.
and I just the more I listened to it, I just wanted to do it, and learning the lyrics to all my favorite songs and favorite artists and stuff like that. Some influences of mine would be like Kanye West, Lil Wayne, obviously Eminem, Ti, some Nelly, some of the older school guys that, of course, Jay Z as well. Uh, a lot of other that I just, can't. There's a lot of them, thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so,
So
yeah, man.
within hip hop, what genre within hip hop would you call the type of hip hop you're doing? What would you call it?
I would say it's real rap. I always, when these types of questions come up, I always answer with real rap. It's like a conscious rap almost, and I like to talk about stuff that's maybe really going on or something that you could apply to everyday life, not just, making words pretty much rhyme. I like to
Yeah,
stand
so
behind
it's like
some of my
so you're
lyrics,
telling so you're telling like real stories. It's like songwriting
in other
and that
words.
kind of yeah.
Yep.
So that I think that's a really cool thing, because some people, they grow up hearing stuff and they be actually putting together into like like a lesson. I always looked at like hip hop when I started. It was like the message. You hear
Right.
something like that, and you're like, or you're Africa Bombada, and you're listening to like Planet Rock, and you're like, okay, what's that? And it was like you were telling a story, and that
Right.
I think if anybody is like, okay, well, I can get into this. Um, now people are getting the things are more clip based. It's just like it's a beat. Maybe it's not
Right.
telling a story, kind of beat. Like it's not really. It's cool, it's hidden, but it's not really telling you that much.
A
So
lot
I
of
like the idea.
mainstream music is like that, in my opinion. It's just
Hmm.
a really hot beat, and just a hot artist on it at a time, and it may be the lyrics ain't as good as some of the independent artists that I know. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just
Yeah, 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 but I think the whole art of hip hop is like it's really the flow of the lyrics is, it's really important, that the work that gets put into music. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work people put in. And there's
right,
always the hip hop and the sampling and the doing this and that. But the poetry and the flow is really, phenomenal. That's why people
right,
win, Grammys,
mm,
because you
exactly,
look at like Eminem, you look at Dr. Dre, like why Snoop Dogg's like why did they win? Why did they get something? Because the amount of work they put in. It's not just a
right,
game, it's important.
exactly. Some hard work,
So
man. A lot of hours go into it.
yeah, I think it's just that's what something people don't realize how much musicians, how much work we put into our work. And they say, well, that's hidden. And it's like,
Right,
yeah. And maybe it seems like it's effortless and it looks cool to act like it's effortless, but there's like so much detail in what you do
right.
that people need to appreciate that.
And it's not free either.
You know?
It costs a
No,
lot of money.
no, it's like how much work. Yeah, musicians, if you think about it, like rock bands, it's like we had to buy our guitars, we got to buy our stuff. Like nobody gave it to us, before we,
Right.
in order to get out there, we bought our mics, all that stuff. And people were like, "Oh, you just do it." It's like, yeah, I'm just not doing it on a voice memo. Maybe at the beginning, but when you want to get it out there, you got to get it mastered. You got to get, you got to get something, you know, presentable.
Right.
Everybody thinks,
And
"Oh,
then
I can just go off in my bedroom and do a voice memo." It's like, yeah, maybe, but that's not
yep.
it. That's not everything you got to do.
And then after that, you gotta market, promote, all the everything else that comes afterwards.
Yeah, so that's like so when you get into that type of music, like when figured you loved hip hop, you like the real hip hop. When did you know that you actually had a voice and you could actually get into the game and you actually could say something? Because like there's a lot of people, they might just like clone Dr. Dre. They might just,
Right.
like it's like a cover band. Like if you're in a rock band, you got the guys who play at the pizza shop and they just playing like Journey all day. Okay, that's
Right.
cool that you can play Journey, but when did you decide to actually write your own song?
Right. I did like a mixtape when I first got out of high school, and then kind of work and life caught up, and it was 2018 before I started making music again, and I graduated in '09, so it was a good little stretch. So yeah, I've been doing it seriously now for like the last 4 years. So
Wow. So you really got into it in a serious way. Was there any kind of like critical moment that made you get back into it? Because you were like you liked it as a kid, you kind of walked away from it, and then what made you
right,
want to come back into it?
it was really kind of so where we live in North Florida, we had in 2018 a bad storm that came through Hurricane Michael. I don't know if you know about it
Yeah,
or
yeah,
anything like that, but it kind
yeah.
of devastated our area, and so for for like a month we didn't have nothing to do. You know what I mean? So I kind of
Mhm.
that was kind of like the catalyst to kind of get me back into it in a way, almost. Yeah, looking back at it, it's kind of crazy how it happened, but a lot of my friends, their homes were messed up, so a lot of people were
Mhm.
staying with me, crashing with me, and one of my good friends, he's a guitar artist. He's very talented. Josh Edenfield, shout out to him. We started messing around with the keyboard and this and that, and making songs. And I was like, you know what, I'm thinking about getting back into it. Because yeah,
Yeah, well, I think what the thing about people don't realize, like, there's a team behind a lot of people. You get a personality. It's like so when you have one Drew, like how many people are actually like help you get to your album or your single? Like how's that work? I mean, is it a whole team of people that you work with, like
right now
collective?
I'm a right now we got a kind of a collective of artists. Right now I'm a part of AME, which stands for Ashton Martin Entertainment, and it also stands for Awake, Motivate, Educate, and basically we just plan to inspire through music. And me and Ashton uh, are some of the artists, or the artists right now associated with AME, and videographer Nisi J, and
Mhm.
Ashton's wife, our manager as well. So excuse me.
No, that's people have to realize, because like even though you might have like a single name associated with an artist, compared to if you had like a four-piece rock band, people don't realize like, hey, there's a producer, there's engineers, there's all these other
Right.
people that
Yeah, if
behind the personality.
any successful artist, there's always going to be a team behind them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Somebody who's kind of been there from the jump. It could be family. It could be friends that you've made that are now your family. You know what I mean? It could just be engineers, producers you meet along the way.
yeah,
So somebody who
yeah.
believes in you. You know what I mean? That's going to go a long way if you have that trust in your team. So that and that's kind of what helps us a lot. I think our team is very solid. So shout out to
So
AME.
So when you guys do a show, you have like your whole collective, like that you guys like take over a club and you've got like multiple members. So you can I think the lesson there is like if you go in as one person, that's kind of hard to book a club. If you go in as a whole collective, you can actually tell the promoters like, hey, we got people that can do 2 hours worth of music or three
Right.
hours worth of music, then you have a better pitch to the clubs.
Exactly. And we also talk about that is when you come in by yourself, it looks a little different than when you come in with a whole team and you got a cameraman following you, and you got the manager right there. If, somebody's trying to book a show, you say, hey, you talk to my manager, let me introduce you real quick, stuff like
Hmm.
that. Everybody's wearing the same shirts and got the logos on it. You
Yeah,
look,
you look better.
perspective is, yes, yes, sir.
When you can have that merch table and you got the T-shirts and you got the mixtapes and you got posters,
Absolutely.
and you look like you're like, oh, you're together. That you're not walking in saying, hey, how do I actually hook up the mic? you know,
Right, right.
you come in, it's like, yeah, yeah, I'm a professional. I know how to do this. I've been gigging.
Yes, sir.
So where did the name One Drew come from? We probably could step back and like ask, like, how do people know you as One Drew? How did that come about?
So I originally was gonna use my real name, just Drew Brazell, but I actually, got to thinking about it, and I'm kind of very original in my opinion. So one
Hmm.
Drew is like basically saying there's only one Drew. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
also the one stands for unity as well. So it's something that me and my team we talk about quite often is unity. Just having that everybody kind of standing together and making things happen, working together. you know it's something that everybody can learn from.
Well, positivity is really cool because there's some people they get into the game and you use however you get out there. But when you have something that's like inherently like a really light kind of that you're aspiring to be aspirational that you want to get people motivated. I think that's cool to
Yeah,
have that
yeah, I
edge.
think it's good to stay positive too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, because you can get in, you can use things to get out there, but then those things can use you.
Right,
You
exactly.
know,
It's well said, well
it's
said.
yeah, so you gotta be careful, like, what you choose to jump on, because yeah, it'll get you out there, it's like, but we'll keep you out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, when you start touring, were you only touring in the US, or were you able to, like, go outside the US?
Actually, my first tour was in Canada. So the
Mhm.
first time I toured, we actually went over to Toronto, Canada, and we actually drove, by the way. So it was a long ride. I think it was like 22 hours, 25 hours, something like that.
Well, that
And
gets everybody to, in the I guess that brings the team spirit, you
yeah, it
get to
does.
know
And actually, I went with Ashton Martin and his wife Dakiria, and that's also our manager, by the way. And
mhm,
we actually only met two times before that, I think. And one time was at a show, and then one time they pulled up to the studio, and we just chopped it for a little bit. And
mhm.
somehow we was talking about the tour, and they asked me to go. So I think that was like our third time being around each other. So yeah, we kind of got pretty close pretty quick. So
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the kinda getting into the fire, because I remember I had to do a gig in Boston, and the next day I had to go to New York. I
yeah,
finished, like, a gig at, like, 1 in the morning, and then I had to, like, be on the way to get to New York because like,
right.
that's where the next gig is, so, like, the roadie's never saying, "Oh, hey, I guess we're not getting that much of a break. It's like, no, we're going right through.
Right, exactly. It's funny, man, because we was kind of in the same situation. When we got to Toronto, we were supposed to be like several hours earlier. You know how it is with traffic and everything. So we
Yeah.
was like pushing the time because we had an interview to go actually at a radio station. We had to go to the radio station, so we had to stop at like just one of these bathrooms at the gas station that you don't ever want to go into. We had to kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
freshen up in there
Off
before we
the
got to
road.
the interview and change and stuff. So it's like, dang, we started off like, dang, this is tour life.
Tour life
you
is
know,
fun, you know. Like
yeah, yeah,
you're in that condo line van before you get to be on the bus.
right,
So then,
exactly,
before you get the nice, it's like it's not everybody's on the Led Zeppelin plane with with the Zoso on it, you know.
I was just saying, I was just fixing to say, man, yeah, we wasn't on Wheezy's bus, so
Yeah,
we wasn't at that step yet.
yeah, it's kind of old school. Um,
Right,
well, I remember back in the '90s, I was following all these like grunge bands, and I actually following like REM, and
okay,
before they were big, they were like in vans and stuff.
right, right,
They weren't really they were on like IRS records. They weren't on like Warner Brothers, and they didn't have a lot of cash, and so they're like driving Econoline vans, from gig to gig, and they
right.
get to know each other, lying in the van with the
Yes, sir.
drums and everything rolling around. So I mean, that's kind of what it is. People don't. It's not always super glamorous. We're all in the Learjet, jumping around.
Right. It's work. It's work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's a
work.
lot of networking, a lot of work, and it is what it is. Trying to get your name out there.
So like in terms of your first album, maybe talk about how that came about. Because we'll get back. We kind of
Mhm.
mentioned it briefly at the beginning. So
Right.
your debut album was Hollywood Dreams, and then you had a history making title track, Robbin Hood. Maybe talk about the process that where you were able to have not just a song. 'Cause some people only have like a single, but you actually had an album. Maybe you can talk about how you actually did an album and came up with that single.
Yeah. So, Hollywood Dreams was my first debut album, and I kind of wanted to get personal with the fans and let them know who I was. Just with my first album, and Robin Hood is one of them songs that it's kind of like it's no hook, so it's kind of just like a fast paced rap song all the way through. It's kind of just like the upbeat
Hmm.
song of Hollywood Dreams, and I used it for promotional purposes as well. And so yeah, uh, how I made
So
that
the
song, I just came in and DB the Plug is actually the producer on that, and he sent
mhm.
me like a pack of beats, and I was listening to him, and right when I heard it, I was like, oh man, this is solid right here. I got to get on this. So just started rapping to it, man. That's kind of how I create music. I listen to the beat, and I might be in the mood sometimes to write a song. I kind of know where I'm going with it, but as far as lyrics and writing, I'll listen to the beat and kind of let it determine the flow, and then that'll bring out the lyrics for me. And I'll just write it all down, and when I get it how I want it, I you know go in the booth and do what I do.
Yeah, because that's like, well, I don't know, I'm a keyboardist, and I'm gonna typically play like in like fusion or rock and jazz kind of things. And a lot of times when we write, different ways you write. Sometimes I actually get the whole song. Is like I wake up
Right,
in the middle of the night, I got the whole song, and I got the chords and everything. I'm like, okay. And other times, like I'm actually playing with it on a napkin or a piece of paper or a voice memo. Um,
right,
but you kind of like mentioned it's kind of like what I like to do is an older style of songwriting called stream of consciousness. You kind of like you put the beat down, you let the drum machine go, you let something go, you play in that track, and then you just open the mic and just put the tape machine on, you just start going, and then you go back, you
right,
listen to it, and say, "Hey, that's it," and then you actually refine it and write it down. So, do you kind of
right.
have is that like the overall method that you kind of like you get this idea and you refine it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's funny. That first idea, I really should start recording it first. And I think we talked about that
Yeah, yeah,
before. Then, yes, it's a lot of times your first thoughts and your initial, feelings that the track brings out is like a lot of times your best stuff.
yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
that's an older technique. I mean, I think I mentioned I watched a documentary with Elton John, right? And he's has famous album called Yellow Brick Road. And
Right,
he
right,
went and got like a mansion. In the Stones on Exile Main Street, they got a mansion in France. And so this was like a 1970s style. There's a band would say, I don't want to be in a recording studio. So they go rent a house. And usually it's some kind of mansion or something. And they mic the whole place. And then they'd have like a bunch of boards and they just put the record on with the recording engineer and mic everything and just run through the songs. And
right.
Elton John said, he's like, it was everything on Yellow Brick Road, like the second, third take because
Yeah,
like we didn't want to think about it too much. It's like if we got it down, that's it. That because it was
right,
closer to. I think he said it's closer to what your original intent is. If you start doing the 10th take and the 20th take, then you actually walked away from the original idea
right.
and you start kind of editing yourself, and then
And
it's not
almost
really what it was.
right. It's almost like you lose inspiration, or it just starts to become not as natural to you, or just like you're reading it, or versus
Well, it becomes
really,
work
really
instead of
having
art.
that. Right, right,
And
exactly.
like and maybe I can see a person that's a perfectionist, right? If you get these vocalists like the 5 octave voice and they're trying to get perfection, and I understand there's some producers that are into perfection, but
Right,
I really have listened to a lot of music as like a DJ and a radio guy, and there's something about the older recordings from the 60s and 70s that are like the third, fourth take. They actually songs that have mistakes. If you actually
right.
listen to songs, they actually got mistakes in them back in the
And now
70s.
there's good mistakes.
Yeah, it actually like what makes the song. If you listen to
Right,
like Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones, the way he plays is not something that you could normally track to today. Right? He doesn't go based on the beat. He kind of plays to his own beat.
right,
And today people be like, "Well, you got to fix that." It's like, really, you gonna tell Keith Richards to fix how he plays?
right. Exactly,
Yeah, not
exactly.
really, because
Yeah,
that's just something today that's like the happy accident, is really
a happy
core,
accident.
like,
Yep.
yeah, to a lot of great music, a lot of great, it doesn't matter if it's rap or rock or punk or whatever. Uh,
Right,
if people who just let it go and they say, "Wow, I didn't even really mean to do that, but that's kicking, and that's what I'm actually
right.
gonna use that."
Yeah, we were actually like a month ago, we were in Atlanta. We had AME Boss Camp over there to go, and it's like basically where we all come together and just figure out what all we can work on. We'll work on like networking skills, this and that, all types of stuff. Any things we can improve on. How can we do this? How can we get to where we want to be?
Mhm.
Basically. And some of the like we had like workshops kind of set up, or our manager had it set up for us. Shout out to Dakiria. And
Yeah.
so she had us actually go to a park, and it's a busy park in Atlanta. The trains are going by, so it's not somewhere you can really concentrate. She's like, okay, we're gonna write a song in 20 minutes. And we're like,
Yeah,
what?
that's a cool thing.
Yeah. So we're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, this is the beat. Here you go. 20 minutes. Let's go. So me and Ashton are like, all right, bump it. Let's do it. And then also she had these words like I don't know, 5 words, 6 words a piece that we had to also
Fit
use
in.
in our lyrics.
Oh, that's a
So
cool
it's kind
technique.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of up the ante a little bit. So we're like, all right, whatever, let's do it. And after we did that, she's like, okay, now you got 20 minutes to record the song. And we're in a park in Atlanta, and we're like, record the song? What you mean? So we had to
Your
go
voice
back to
memo.
like, yeah, got to go to the voice memo. We had to sit in the car and play the music. So now we got, the beat on there. And so we're like looking at the phone, we got our lyrics, and we're like, had to text the lyrics back and forth to each other because we're gonna read these lyrics off of this phone while we record with his phone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the whole time, cameraman or the camera man, Nisi J, shout out to her. She was getting B-roll the whole time, and this and that. And then after that, we had to shoot the video in 20 minutes. So we got literally the song wrote, the song recorded, and the video shot all in 1 hour.
Well, I think
And
that's
it's
an awesome technique. There was a band I liked from Minneapolis called who could do like a punk band. Had Grant Hard,
right,
Bob Mole back in the 90s, and they had this album called Zen Arcade, and their producer went and got a warehouse, and he said, "We're gonna record this whole album, a double record, in 48 hours. It's all
wow,
first, second take. It's all new stuff. You're just gonna run through the whole thing in this warehouse in 48 hours, and that's it." Right? And the whole band, the punk band, they just went and did it, and it's like they got 5 stars in Rolling Stone because
that's crazy, right?
it was fresh, it was raw, it was
Yeah,
powerful, and they kind of just, after a while, they just believed in what they were doing, and they said, "Yeah, let's put it down." And
right,
that's a cool technique, you know. And then the other thing we talking about, like the cards, like fitting the words in, like Brian Eno, was a real famous
Right.
producer, worked with Bowie, worked with U2, worked with all these different people. When he was working with Bowie, he one day went into a Bowie session for like Fame, the famous song Fame. And he was telling all the studio musicians, I want you to do this. He went and got a chalkboard and he started just putting random chord, like do an A minor, do a G, do a B, do that. He just randomly just told him, go on to just do that. And the studio musician said, well, that doesn't even work. What are you
Right.
doing? Why are you doing that? I just want to randomize what we're doing. Just do it. Right. And he just threw this kind of random thing into it. He just like, he chose different chords just out of the blue and told the guys
Yes.
just to play them. And then that's kind of why, why the Berlin stuff that Bowie did, like Fame and all that stuff, sounds the way it does because Brian Eno just came in with this radical ideas. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to make
Right.
these guys do something that's a little uncomfortable and force them to try to make it work. Right. And
Right.
and that's a cool production technique. Producers will kind of jump in and throw a little chaos in to see how you respond to it.
Right. It kind of teaches you in our situation. It kind of teaches because me and Ashton both we're kind of like perfectionists with our crafts. So it kind of teaches you to know just kind of go with your gut feeling, your first instincts, and
Mhm.
we're always used to what we have, the studio, the nice things, but really the resources we have at hand, which is the cell phone. We can
Yeah.
do everything off of the cell phone. And
Yeah.
it all comes out and sounds good still. So actually the name of that track is called Limited Resources, and
Well,
it's
that's
actually
cool.
out right now, so on all platforms you can watch the video as well on YouTube. But yeah, and you can
That's
go to
awesome.
It's Ashton Martin, look at that, or search One Drew, you'll find it. So but
I
yeah, it's
think that I
pretty
mean,
cool
even Jack
name. And
White. Yeah, I mean, even
go
Jack
ahead,
White
go ahead.
from White Stripes, right? He's
Right.
famous being this awesome guitar player, and he said, "Well, I use $100 plastic Sears Roebuck guitar." And people are like, "What?" You got these guitar players, they got like $5,000, $20,000 guitars. And he said,
Right.
"Well, I'm just gonna use this really piece of crap, no good guitar, and just prove that I can take this garbage guitar. Anybody could get. You can mail order. It doesn't cost hardly anything, and I can still rip it. And it kind of proves
Yeah.
like you can take anything, and if you're a good musician, you could take it and make it sound good. It's just
Right.
a matter of you having that dynamic and like the idea of limited resources. That
Right.
sometimes you force yourself to have a limitation. You force yourself
Right.
to use something that's low out of tune, or it's like not the best instrument, or it's not the best mic, it's not the best piece of equipment, but I can still come in and do it like a lo-fi thing, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
and that can actually have a lot of honesty and heart. And if you put yourself in that situation, you'll find it's like that's a good dynamic to kind of show you that you don't need all the accoutrements, you don't need all this extra stuff. You just got to have that heart and the passion to do what you're doing.
Right. Right, exactly. And your talent's gonna shine through, if you love what you do, if you have that passion for it, somebody's gonna see it.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing about like music. Like the other thing we say is like we have to put so much into it. We have to put so many resources into it. Sometimes you don't get that first payday. It's like learning a lesson. Like every time you're a musician and you get out there, like you are like the result of all the things that you had to learn, all the things you had to get to be who you are today. And if you
Right.
didn't go through the mistakes, as an artist or a creator, like you wouldn't learn, you wouldn't get anywhere. It's how you
Right.
build. Not everything's gonna be perfect, and that's how you get to perfection is
Right.
realize that things aren't gonna be perfect and trying to roll with it.
Yes. All the successful people failed way more times than they succeeded. You know what I mean? A good friend of mine
Yeah, I
says,
mean,
"You're only as good as you are right now." You know what I mean? Tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, you might be better than right now, but right now you're only as good as you are right now. So
yeah.
put it out. You know what I mean? Go for it.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing you get people like I've run into musicians and they're like taking 2 years to put something out, and I understand it,
Right.
and they're trying to be perfect, but then the way the game is like sometimes you gotta throw everything at the wall because you don't know. Like a
Yeah.
big guy like Prince. Prince was famous for not picking the right song, right? That the people around him would pick the songs, and he used to write so much that he had sometimes lost perspective on what is actually going to work. right? So
Right.
he'd have so much stuff, and so much of it was good. They had to have other people kind of pick what was going to be the thing that was the Purple Rain, that was the When Doves Cry,
Right.
because he wasn't good at actually picking that, and that's what is surprising. You would think that the artist could figure out which one is the right one, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
You never know really. Yeah, going back to limited resources, I was like, sitting there in the park when she said you got 20 minutes to write the song. In my head, I'm like, you know, this is whatever. It's gonna be a throwaway song. You know what I mean? And she's like, and this is gonna be our new single. And I was like, dang, what? This ain't gonna be, this and that. It's gonna be 20 minutes, like off the top of the head, really. But we've gotten so many compliments on that song. A lot of people have just been saying like, man, that's got to be the song. You know what I mean? Oh,
wow.
I heard the song. It's wow, boy, y'all. That's a deep song. It's kind of inspiring. And then you hear the story behind it. And it's kind of like, what? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
You know
not
what I
what you
mean?
expect because, like, a lot of times you might be the artist, right? And it's the song that you put like months into. It's
Right.
like all the overdubs, all the work, and then it's that song you did in 20 minutes off the cuff,
Right.
and it
That's the
really
one that
becomes
blows.
just when it blows. And the thing is, that's why sometimes, like, I always tell a lot when I'm a producer, like, you put everything down, right? And don't prejudge because the thing you think ain't gonna work, that's the one your fans like. And
Right.
if you decide just to hold it, then you'll never know. So sometimes you got to throw it at the wall because you don't know what's going to stick.
Yeah, I had songs like that on Hollywood Dreams. I was like, man, this song's gonna be, this, and everybody's like in this song. I'm like, man, that's crazy. I would have thought that.
Yeah, yeah. So that if you're like
But
the artist, you end up not putting out the whole record, and you just pick one song
right,
that you think's the song.
right,
It's
exactly.
like took away all your shots because you prejudge your audience and you don't know what they're gonna do because this audience are famous for like actually not really misinterpreting your lyrics. And you're
Yes,
like, well, then you actually like, oh, well, the audience actually owns the song. Like, and if that's how they read it, that's how they read it. And you could have
exactly.
all these intentions that they should have read it this way, but they read it the
Yeah,
way they read
it's
it.
it's art for them to interpret themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So that's a big lesson. I think a lot of artists they're trying to like, oh, I'm trying to control how people listen to me. And I
right,
said, well, that might not be the right way to do it because like how your fans hear it and what you hear yourself that's when you first things you learn is like, wow, it's like what I'm hearing and what they're hearing is not necessarily the same thing.
right.
And
And that's
then
going right back to having a team and having that trusting team behind you. Somebody that you can look at somebody and pick out some songs. What do you think about this? And get honest feedback. Stuff like that
yeah,
to
yeah,
kind of see the things
I
that
think
you
that's
don't see.
critical.
Yes, it's very critical.
Totally.
Every
Yeah, I
successful
mean,
artist has a team.
yeah, because I mean, if you're sitting there, you're holding on to usually like an artist, like if you're that's your love, right? And then you got
Right,
people around you. Probably not everybody wants to hear 100 versions of your stuff, right? You got to have the people who are close to you that want to hear that, they
right,
want to hear your stuff. And that's really super critical is getting that sounding board so you do know, have some perspective, because if it's
right,
just like, when you get the people, sometimes they're just one person. And it's like, it's very hard if you don't have that team because you do need that perspective of bouncing it off other people and say, hey, is this really kicking? Like in my mind, I think this is it. And it's like, hey,
right.
no, that's not it.
You need somebody to tell you it ain't it if it's not
That
it
ain't
too.
it.
Because let me tell you, man, I've heard some songs and I've seen some artists and they stand behind these songs and I'm here to tell you it's not it.
That's not it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
you
get a
need
lot.
somebody like that in your corner, man, for real.
Yeah, because like, when you're putting stuff together, sometimes you got to have that perspective. But it's
Exactly.
really it's the whole part of it. Like 'cause you get into the game, and you got the people that they're looking for the instant gratification, and if they don't hit,
Right.
then they're done. Like I've been doing
Yeah.
this. I'm 54, right? I was 17. I was all these people around me when I was 17, and a lot of those guys by the time I was 24, they were gone because they always
Right.
taking too long. Right? It's taking too long, and they just drop. And like, because they're looking for it to happen, and I can understand that, but like a
Yeah.
lot of times, like I've been in this game since like 78, 1978, right? And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't start kicking until like 2016. And it's because I really cared about what I was doing. I said I'm not going to stop. And
Right.
I found other things to do like podcasting and sync licensing and producing and working on other people's records. And so then sometimes it's like it's not what you imagined, but you
Right.
get where you want to be because you care about what you want, the whole
That
scene you care
passion,
about.
that passion, that love for it that you had, that's amazing, man. That's a long time, that you've been in the game. And a lot of people do look for that instant gratification. And, you gotta trust the process, man. You gotta, if you're really gonna do it, you gotta see it through. So
Yeah, that's why I try to say
respect,
it's a
respect to
lesson
you,
to
man.
people. Yeah, it's a lesson. It's like I could have gave up, and there are periods of time where I kind of dropped out and he dropped back in. But yeah, I
Right,
mean, I just ended up sticking with it, and I was like, I believe in the music, and
right.
that's when I started
Yeah,
getting into podcasting and talking to emerging artists because I said, you know what? If I go and talk to somebody like you, or and I talk to anybody in like multiple genres, like the heavy metal guys, are like DJs, EDM rappers, punk rockers, and it's just all they're so passionate and it's just infectious. They like
yeah,
whether you're into it with a band from like Australia or somebody from the deep south or somebody like in London, like everybody's believing in it, and I think
right,
that is what drives me is like they get inspired to listen to new people like
right,
every week. I get to listen to a bunch of new stuff and it gets me motivated as an artist because the more stuff that you hear, I wanted to ask you like that, like when you listen to like the other people that you're influenced by or people you look up to, it kind of drives where you are, right? Like it's like you
right,
don't just listen to your own music. As a musician, you get inspired by all the inputs that you feel, right? You feel
right,
like the whole world. And how does that work? Like when you're writing a song, it's a combination. I think I tell people of your influences, like your own vision for what you think music should be, but
right.
it's like all of that all at
It's
once.
everything you've soaked up from all these artists that you've ever listened to and all the songs that you've ever liked, and then you pretty much take all that and
Yeah,
use all that to tell your story in a way. You know what I mean? It's kind of awesome. You know what I mean? It kind of gives you chills. It's like,
yeah,
and if you're an artist, it's just like in you. You know what I mean? When you hear music, it kind of does something to you. And in any kind of music, you know what I mean? I listen to other things besides rap. So it's like when you hear this music or you're just in this creative mood and you can feel it, you know what I mean? It's almost like it's like highs and lows. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like you're real, real high and you're creating and you could just feel it. And then like, next week or a couple of days, you might not be feeling it at all. It's
Yeah, the inspiration's weird because, like, yeah, I've got like the idea I was always into because I started music as a poet. And I was going to ask this
okay.
question. Some people, get into music. A lot of musicians I've talked to, in the interviews, the first thing I hear from a lot of singer songwriters, no matter what genre, is they actually were poets,
Right.
and then they realized that their poetry could be turned into music. And then
Yeah.
they started adjusting that. Did you start ever with poetry or was right into like rap?
Yeah, I'm in that boat as well. I used to write poetry in middle school, probably fourth or fifth grade, something like that. When I was real young, actually.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I kind of like that. I hated school, really, man.
Mm.
And it was kind of weird. I hated reading, really. I didn't like reading at all, but I loved poetry. And so, like Edgar Allan Poe and some of them
Yeah, yeah.
artists or some of the
Cool stuff like
poets
that.
that you get introduced to in school, I was like, man, that's it's kind of deep how you could play with these words and it's real fancy with it. And then you got to think about it. You know what I mean? You don't really know what he said. You got to think about what he
Yeah,
said
the
and put it
layers.
in.
I
Right?
always
It's
loved
it's all
like the
layered.
yeah, I loved about like I was into like romantic poets from this era called the Victorians, right? And they had this guy William Blake, who's famous for
Okay.
like Tiger, Tiger, how fearful thy symmetry. Like and U2 used his he had his famous song poetry collection called The Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. And the thing about William Blake, he was like a farmer who was an artist and used to etch his poems in acid on metal plates. And he would draw like all this intricate art that would go with the poem. So
Wow.
he had this collection called The Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. And it was kind of like this heaven hell story, and every poem is on a metal plate with all this fantastic art. And during his time, nobody knew who he was. It's like
Wow.
only after he died, people found the songs of innocence and experience. They found all these poems in these plates, these metal plates that he etched out that had the poems in them. So they lasted like forever. And these people
Wow.
found it in this barn in the Victorian after the Victorian era, and they said, "This guy's brilliant. He was totally unsung. Nobody knew who he was. Like now, everybody today, if you read about him, he's like they know who he is. But in
That's
his own
amazing,
time,
isn't it?
they didn't know him, and he believed in his work so much he etched it and acid on metal plates with art.
That's wild.
I tell people,
Eh,
so that's kind of like a lesson, you
right,
know.
it's kinda what we was talking about earlier, you know what I mean? If
He believed in
he
it.
he believed in it, yeah, that's crazy, man.
So I think that's a cool thing to tell people, like, you don't always make it in your time. A modern day kind of lesson like that is like Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground.
Hey, art is
Everybody knows,
timeless, right?
yeah, everybody know about Lou Reed. Like he had a band called Velvets in the '60s. Worked with to Warhol, who's a famous artist. They used to
Right,
do all
right.
this crazy art, and Warhol wanted to create a band, and Lou Reed was this great poet, and he said, well, "Hey, what if I do spoken word music with this kind of lo-fi thing, and then have Andy Warhol do all this art behind it?" And that
Yeah,
created the Velvets. And the Velvet Underground influenced like all these people up to like the alternative rock mode, and all these bands from like Counting Crows to Replacements and tons of people in indie rock, Pearl Jams of the world. They were always name checking Lou Reed and the Velvets. And like they
man,
say that they, in his time when he first started with the Velvets, nobody bought the records, but tons of people who became producers and singers bought the records. And then they were influenced by his style because it was so unique. If you've ever listened to anything Lou Reed did, he's like a Dylan. He's like very verbose, very interesting lyrics. Are like very tight, and
wow.
it's just something that sometimes you don't make it in your time, and then people find you after. You know, Later in the mid
Yeah,
'70s, he got big, but he started in like '66. He didn't start kicking until like '74.
wow. It's wild.
Yeah, so that's another
Lessons, man.
lesson.
Yep,
He stuck with it and he became super big. So that's always like you believe in what you're doing, and then the audience sometimes will come to you.
right. And sometimes, man, it's not always good to just be a one hit wonder or just blow up off your first song because now you don't have that material to go
Right.
back to or for everybody. So everybody's waiting on that new stuff, and now their expectations are so high. And if you can't handle it, or you've only been in the game so long, there's all these stuff you didn't know. You don't have a solid team behind you. So now it's like everybody who's wanting to be something, a part of you, they all got their hand out. You know what I mean? So it's like a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of pros and cons to it.
yeah.
So
I mean, I love being indie. Is that if you build yourself to be kind of grassroots, it's not
right,
like you get the old school way. You get a record deal. They give you 3 albums. If you don't kick and you hit like a million seller, you got
right.
dropped.
And now you owe
Right?
them a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, you owe them all this money, you're never gonna be out there again. But now if
Exactly.
you're kind of building up grassroots and you can survive, right? You could keep on playing for like 10 years, because
Yes.
you
And
can
you've
literally.
made these connections and you know
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
move out here and in the within the industry.
yeah, and then you're, like, featured on other people's stuff, you do production with other people's stuff, you go on tours with these collectives, you can actually make money from touring. Which is
Right,
like the model for most musicians, because like the thing about streaming, I always get into streaming is like streaming is kind of like the radio was in the old days. It's like you didn't really make a lot of money, made like 10 cents from a radio play of a record, right? And today you get like like less than pennies, like 0.05 of a penny for a
right,
stream Spotify. It's really when you go to that club and you get paid for the show, you get paid for the merch, you get paid to put that song into a movie. You get paid to put it into
right,
a Pepsi ad. That's how you
right.
make the money, you know, and
Exactly.
and that you can survive, doing ads or doing features or doing all this sync licensing and never be super big in the top 10. You could hardly ever hit the top 10, but if you sync license and you do on tours and you got a fan base and that fan base is 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, you can survive. You can
Yeah.
continue to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and this is all the stuff that the record labels and the mainstream media and everybody's playing this mainstream music. They don't tell you this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
that's
want you to
not.
be signed with them, and they want to have all the masters. they want to be making the money, but they
Yeah.
want to put you on this pedestal and make it look like you're a rock star. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's not always the best thing.
Yeah,
Perspective
it's like
is
organic growth where you get a fan base. I always kind of point out like the Grateful Dead, like back in the Haight Ashbury kind of scene,
right.
like the old school, like the band, like even band like Funkadelic. They'd have the people that would just follow Funkadelic from town to town. It's like that band's so damn awesome. There's like I'm just gonna go see them every night. See Mothership
Wow.
Connection coming down, right? Just like the Deadheads, they would follow the Dead, Jerry Garcia, and them everywhere they went. They'd go see them if they played 3 nights in a row. Every Deadhead's in there every night.
Dang.
Even though they see that band, like they already saw them on Friday, they went and saw them on Saturday and Sunday.
That's a
That's
solid fan base.
yeah, that's the kind of base that you build up by building that kind of connection to your crowd, to your scene.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
So when you sell T-shirts and you sell merch and got the CDs, they're gonna buy copies. They're gonna buy some for their friends.
yeah,
And them are true fans. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Shout
And
out to
they
them.
follow when they follow you and they go town to town and they're like out there, they're bootlegging you. Not that you want them to do that, but it's like you get the hardcore fans. They put a fan magazine. They got a blog about you.
Right.
You
Exactly.
appreciate the bloggers that are kind of pushing you up. You build it up. That's how you get in the scene. If you think about like the whole grunge era on Sub Pop, like Nirvana was on this very small label with Sub Pop, and in the Seattle scene, they had all these bands kind of playing that kind of grunge, and Nirvana
Right.
was the one that kind of blew up. But there's
Right.
like all these other ones. It was like this whole scene where you got Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. All those bands were all playing the same scene, and one
Yeah.
of them blew up. Then they all blew up in
Right.
in
Exactly.
like a 10-year period of grunge, of because that whole scene just went crazy,
That's
you
how it's
know?
gonna be, man, in North Florida. I'm telling you, like probably Tallahassee. The music scene in Tallahassee right now is huge, and like somebody don't know who it's gonna be, but they're gonna blow, and then like the eye is gonna be looking in North
Yeah,
Florida. You know
and
what
the
I mean? And
whole
then
scene
you're gonna
once the
have
whole yeah, that whole scene
exactly
blows up, that's what you get. That's how you get things, man. That's like everything if you look at history. Even the idea of like rock and roll is like when Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, they all kind of start blowing up around the same time with Elvis. They all start blowing up, and then they create that's the rock and roll scene. That's how
right,
you get
right,
the old classic rock and roll because these guys all started blowing up simultaneously in
yeah,
multiple cities. And if you hey, what's that? Oh, that's rock and roll. And that's how
yeah,
it started. That's it. It's the same freaking thing that happens today in hip hop or EDM or
right,
trance. Each of these scenes gets this fan base that gets manic fan base that goes like, wow, that's it. That's it. That's I want,
right,
and that's what you want. That's how you do it.
yeah.
So what's your next project going into like next year or this year? Do you have other stuff coming?
Yeah, I actually got a let's see, I haven't even announced it yet. I've actually announced it at a show that we did a couple months back. But yeah, I got a project called Bel Air Drive. Excuse me, Bel Air Drive,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's an EP. It's a 6-song EP, and I'm actually going to release a single to it the 23rd of this month
Oh,
called
for this
Mission.
month. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you've got any pre-saves or anything for that, let us know, and we can include that when we publish.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely,
if you
man.
got anything set up for that, if you got a web page for that, if everybody can just go to your link tree and it's already there, that's cool.
Yeah,
But if
it'll
you
be
wanna
on my link tree. It'll be on my
okay,
link tree. Actually going to put the cover art to Mission out as tomorrow, actually, and start
awesome.
promoting that for the 23rd. And then October 7th is when Bel Air Drive will drop.
Go drive. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I have all them links into my link tree.
Okay, well, everybody can just continue to just go to the link that we're promoting, and then it will be there. And we just and the cool thing is when we publish, that will actually be like clickable. Like right now, you
Right.
can see it, but you can't click it. But if you actually, when we publish this, and we're all over the place. Like once this gets published, we're going to be on Spotify video podcast within an hour. We'll be on Apple Podcast. We'll be on Stitcher, Radio Public, and we're already on, like I said, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook.
Cool.
And so it just
That's awesome.
cascades, multiple places, and we'll get you all the links to give to your fans. And we even do like a blog article on famelectricghost.com. So every band that we interview, we'll take your bio, we'll take your promotional picture and your primary link, and then a link to like the Spotify version of the podcast, maybe the YouTube, the Facebook. And so on that blogger page, It will have your profile, will have like your bio, and then it'll have your link tree, and everybody can kind of get to wherever they want to hear or watch this podcast there. And so we'll send
Cool,
you that
cool,
link
cool.
later.
Yeah, that's
We just
dope, man.
well, we just want to help. I mean, the whole point of being out there to try to build like a marketing plan, and our plan for the podcast, it's kind of selfish too. It's like it pushes us and it pushes you. It pushes
Right,
everybody
exactly.
at the same
Hey,
time.
man, that's working with each other. That we was talking about unity. You know what I mean? Coming together, working together, everybody with a sole purpose. So
Well, the other thing I like to mention is like we've been doing podcasts since 2016. In 2020, we started to do what we call the PEG Bedroom Producer Festival. So every guest who gets invited on this podcast, we do a festival where online only for now, where we'll do a 3-day event. And we did one in July of 2021 from the 16th to the 18th. And we did one in February where we had like 20 bands or personalities who had been interviewed, did a 3-day concert, 20 to 30-minute set each.
man,
And
that's cool.
we're hoping to do that again. So we always invite anybody who's been on the show. The next time we do it, we'll let you know. And if you're into it, you could do a performance.
Hey, let me know, man. We'll give y'all a show, bro.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just another way to kind of be out there and give people a venue. We take the virtual venue of the podcast and allow you to kind of show people what you do, which is a cool thing to actually have people hear what you sound like and actually see you. Is another.
Right, that's cool. Yeah,
It's like, because that's the whole thing about being a musician is like show people what it is.
right, exactly. We can
Yeah.
talk about it, but
Well, talking is cool in podcasts to kind of about talk. So we've gotten into that mode, but we started to realize like we need to show people who we're talking to and what they do.
yes, sir.
So it gives us another way to do that. So we've been very happy to have you on the podcast, and I'm glad that we got this going right. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, we always have an open invitation anytime somebody's got another project, and you just mentioned you have your next project, and everybody can check that out on your link
Yes,
tree.
sir. Yep, Bel Air
Um,
Drive dropping October 7th.
that's
Y'all hit
great.
my link tree. Make sure y'all get that.
But thank you very much. Everybody check out One Drew. We do tell people like when you listen to an artist, go to if they have a YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If they're on Spotify, playlist them, favorite them, like them, send them to your friends. Go on all the places you like to hear them, hit the download, hit the like, hit the
Right.
subscribe. That's
Share.
how that's how we get attention. You get attention if you get the subscriptions. You get people's hitting the likes. If you're on Instagram or any of the things and you just look at it but you don't hit the like, don't do
Right.
that. Hit the like.
And you know you like the video.
You just
Don't be
hit the
that
like.
person. Yeah,
Yeah, don't
exactly.
be the person that watches it 10 times and never hits the like button. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you very much, One Drew. Everybody check it
Hey.
out. And we're Family Like the Goods of One Drew. Thank you for being on our program. We're very happy that you showed up again for us. And
Yeah.
we like to
Appreciate
be
you
there
having
for
me,
you.
man. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, my man.